of democracies, they would be promoting free speech like they did 50 years ago, but they're not promoting it anymore.
Y acá es donde empieza, que es lo que yo les decía, me llama mucho la atención.
Satisfacer todas las necesidades que nos faltan. Por eso hoy quise hacer 3 anuncios. El primero
Primer anuncio.
es que tengo aquí en mis manos la propuesta para reorganizar la división político-administrativa de El Salvador.
Propuesta para reorganizar. Este tipo está muy en chota, gente. Muy en chota. Muy en chota. O sea, estamos hablando de un pueblo que no podía salir a la calle porque estaba totalmente controlada la calle por mafiosos, básicamente. Por las maras y por pandilleros que controlaban absolutamente todo. La gente en El Salvador lo ama. Lo ama. No, Robert, mira, esto lo vi el otro día completo y ahora voy a mostrar un par de cosas que dice el chabón. En pija. Completamente en pija.
Vamos a reducir el número de alcaldías del país de 262 a 44.
¿Sabes lo que es eso, amigo? El número de alcaldías como de municipios debe ser. Pasa que es un país chiquito. Creo que viven 6 millones de personas ahí. Creo que viven 6 millones de personas. El territorio es bastante chico. Es un país muy chico, ¿eh?
Los municipios actuales se convertirán en distritos, que a su vez integrarán estas nuevas 44 alcaldías. Es decir, ya no tendremos 262 alcaldes, ni 262 consejos municipales, ni todos los demás colaboradores de confianza que tienen, ni síndicos, suplentes.
Colaboradores de confianza. Oh, los puestos, los ñoquis. Esto de lo que se habla en gasto de... ¿Por qué tiene tanto asesor, tanta cosa?
Ni todos los demás colaboradores de confianza que tienen, ni síndicos, suplentes, tesoreros, gerentes, asistentes, asistente del asistente, etcétera, etcétera, etcétera.
Bomba, a chuparla. La nueva potencia mundial. En lo que es política, fuera de joda, este tipo está bastante en chota, amigo, ¿no? A nivel internacional, en este momento, no hay... De hecho, el Carson Tucker le hizo una entrevista hace unos días, también la vi. No hay ningún político que tenga el grado de aceptación popular que tiene este chabón. Este tiene arriba del 90% de aceptación popular. La elección anterior la ganó con un 53%, creo. Del 53 pasó a más del 90% de aceptación popular. O para que tengan una idea de... Eso solo se logra con un cambio real. Con un cambio tan evidente que no podés no votarlo. ¿Entendés? O sea, te tiene que cambiar la realidad. Te tiene que cambiar tu vida diaria. O sea, si a vos no te cambia tu vida diaria, no hay manera de que vos tengas ese grado de aceptación.
Solo tendremos 44 alcaldes.
Y la mayoría en el Senado la obtuvo hace 2 años atrás. El otro día, cuando estábamos viendo el debate, yo le dije, me parece que este chabón hizo cosas, es uno de los políticos que dijo que iba a hacer cosas y después y las hizo, y creo que las hizo en demasía comparado, porque creo que se le fue un poco de la mano el chabón, las hizo en demasía, que son estos cambios radicales, de los cuales, por ejemplo, habla Milei, pero hay que ver si Milei hace realmente lo que este tipo hizo. O sea, la gran diferencia es que este chabón lo hizo. Planea cambios radicales, no son los mismos tipos de cambios, obviamente son tipos de pensamientos diferentes. Claro, hablar es gratis, a eso es lo que voy. Pero este chabón está actuando, está haciendo lo que dice que va a hacer, lo hace. Ya cumplió, no, y hay una parte, muchachos, se me puso la sangre media fría.
Que en un país tan pequeño, de apenas 21.000 kilómetros cuadrados, tengamos 262 municipios. Todos con planillas y gastos administrativos que en la mayoría de casos superan incluso la recaudación de impuestos. Es decir, no queda un centavo para obras. A eso sumémosle que muchos alcaldes solo se dedican a robar.
Ya lo empecé.
o a ver qué beneficio personal sacan de los recursos de la gente.
Este chabón es presidente y está diciendo esto. Está en pija. Nada, aparte tiene un habla tremenda, Robert. Es que es una locura el chabón, boludo. Es una locura. El chabón es presidente y está completamente en pija, diciendo los alcaldes roban. ¿Entendés? El otro día en el debate presidencial no hubo uno hablando en serio de corrupción, excepto Milei, que habla de la corrupción. Pero bueno, habla, ¿sí? Habla de corrupción. Los otros 4 se desentendieron completamente de la corrupción. Ni la trataron directamente. Ni se habló. Ni se habló de corrupción. En el debate no se habló de corrupción. Excepto Milei, que obviamente va a hablar de la corrupción.
Y por otro lado, algunos alcaldes honrados que quieren trabajar y que quieren hacer mejores obras, porque los hay, no la mayoría, pero los hay.
Bueno, acá explica varias cosas. Tampoco quiero que lo veamos todo. El primero explica qué es lo que van a hacer, que no van a perder su identidad, porque en realidad van a tener esos distritos, nada más que como que van a pertenecer a algo más grande, vendría a ser como una provincia o algo así, y desde ahí se organizan toda la pelotudez. Pero que las oficinas se van a mantener, que todo se va a mantener, que no van a echar a nadie. Pero sí que van a hacer una limpieza enorme. En realidad que no van a echar a nadie, no sé, pero los asesores y todo eso como que lo van a ver.
Van a poder elegir mejores alcaldes y también fiscalizarlos. Más fácil elegir 44 que 262. Es más fácil fiscalizar 44 que 262.
Es más fácil revisar a 44 que
Por eso
304.
deberán trabajar
Claro.
más arduo y con más honestidad que antes, sin distinción. Y la gente podrá escoger a los mejores. Ustedes tendrán que votarlo, por supuesto. Esta es una propuesta. Espero que pase. Para reducir este órgano a 60 diputados.
Bajar la cantidad de diputados porque en un momento la subieron. Entonces, estamos hablando de recorte del Estado, de recorte legislativo también. De recorte ya, estas 2 primeras propuestas son de recorte. Después la tercera, gente, es tremenda. La tercera es la mejor.
Así como hemos combatido frontalmente a las pandillas, con toda la fuerza del Estado y con todas las herramientas legales que podemos, sin titubear en ningún momento, así también iniciaremos una guerra frontal contra la corrupción. Así como desplegamos fuerzas de seguridad del Estado y acorralamos a los pandilleros hasta llevarlos a la cárcel, así también actuaremos con los delincuentes de cuello blanco, vengan de donde vengan.
Los va a hacer pija todo. No, me lo pasé, pero arranca acá.
También hay un empresario corruptor. En la mayoría de los casos, tiene una tajada más grande incluso que el funcionario. Paga 1 millón para robar 10 millones.
Paga 1 millón para robar 10
Así
millones.
que mi tercer y último anuncio, el más importante de los 3 que daré esta noche, es que hoy declaramos la guerra contra la corrupción.
Esto hace unos meses. Bueno, y acá nombra que ya le arrancó un operativo contra un chabón, un político, no sé qué carajo. Cuidado personal sobre la dolarización, de ahí 25 años.
Creo que algunos se han dado cuenta que no nos acompaña esta noche el señor fiscal general de la República. Es porque en este momento el fiscal general se encuentra allanando y extinguiendo el dominio de todas las propiedades de Alfredo Cristiani.
Este no sé quién es, Alfredo Cristiani. Pero se nota que es como un político conocido de que es alto mafioso, ¿no? ¿El expresidente? Ok.
En este momento La Fiscalía General de la República está ingresando a su mansión en Santa Elena, a su casa en el lago de Coatepeque, a la droguería Santa Lucía e incautando todos esos bienes que pasarán a posesión del pueblo salvadoreño.
Completamente en concha, el amigo. No, pero a un tipo que agarró las maras y las hizo pija y después dice, los voy a agarrar a todos los corruptos y van a tener que dar explicaciones de todo. No, puertas para adentro, lo retamos un poquito a Martincito para que, a ver, si sale con gatitos que no suba la fotito al Instagram, si compra un Rolex que no lo publique, no seas tan bogólico, Martincito. ¿Cómo vas a estar mostrando esto, no? Ah, cerrate con un gato por 20 millones de dólares. Y bueno, o sea, cerré Pablo Martincini. Y se le fue, porque el gatito le gusta. Al gatito le gusta el Instagram, no sabía que era un trabajito privado. Ese tipo de cosas no pueden pasar, amigo. O sea, es obsceno, amigo. Es obsceno. Es obsceno, es demasiado obvio, boludo. Eso genera odio directamente. Kichilov no sabía que se fue con el gatito. No sabía. A este sí le confío que los va a ir a hacer concha todo, boludo. No hay presos por corrupción porque no la reconocen la corrupción.
Pero este no será el único, por supuesto. Reinventarnos significa
No,
hacer...
lo escuché a Kichilov decir, no, sí, tuve que verificar los datos, ver si realmente, porque él ya estaba acá, o sea, ya había revoleado la chota ya en el Mediterráneo. Tuve que verlo, a ver si era verdad, ¿viste? Porque hoy en día hacen deepfakes y todo. No está diciendo, la verdad que es obsceno lo que hace y hay que investigarlo porque ese nivel de gastos no condice al menos con lo que tiene declarado, no condice, eso hay que verlo. No dice eso. Porque son todos es una bola de corrupción enorme, boludo. Son todos corruptos. Entonces, entre ellos no se reconoce nunca la corrupción. El único que hoy en día está hablando de corrupción es Milei. Es el único que reconoce la corrupción y que dice que va a hacer algo. Vuelvo a decir, dichos. Este tipo, ¿por qué? ¿Por qué me puso la sangre fría cuando lo escuché esto? Porque el chabón agarró y salió y los hizo concha todo lo de la Mara y dice, ahora los voy a ir a hacer concha todo lo que estuvieron entregando el país básicamente por su propio bienestar, ¿me entendés? Esto es lo que me da confianza de que alguien que hace lo que dice que va a hacer, después diga que va a hacer otra cosa.
Hacer lo que nadie antes tuvo el valor de hacer. Obligar a uno de los mayores corruptos de nuestra historia reciente a que devuelva lo robado.
Es un chabón joven, creo que tiene 42, 43 años.
Vamos a perseguir
ultra mega joven,
la corrupción en todos los niveles, empezando por uno de los políticos que más daño le hizo a nuestro país, que se creía uno de los dueños de la finca y que por eso despreciaba al pueblo salvadoreño. Curioso que no vi al FMLN aplaudir. ¡Traidores!
Se ve que es la oposición.
Traidores. El pueblo les pasará su factura. El Salvador no volverá a ser la finca de nadie. Y los que creyeron que lo era, lo van a pagar caro.
¿Sabes lo que debe ser, amigo? Si choreaste guita y te viene este flaco, porque sabés que lo va a hacer, amigo. No es un discurso. ¿Sabes lo que debe ser? Que choreaste guita en obra pública o en
No importa si
en
lo
algo.
hace
¿Sabes lo que debe
1,
ser, amigo?
5,
Así debe
10,
ser.
30 años. Les recuerdo que gracias a las reformas hechas en esta
Mirá.
Asamblea Legislativa, los delitos de corrupción ya no prescriben.
No importa cuándo, te voy a buscar para atrás. Vas a tener que explicar qué es lo que tenés, cómo lo tenés.
Así que vamos a ir
Espectacular, boludo.
tras cada corrupto en este país. Los vamos a obligar a pagar el daño que le han causado al pueblo salvadoreño, de la misma manera que estamos erradicando a las pandillas. De esa misma manera, no vamos a titubear para erradicar la corrupción. Con Dios y el pueblo de nuestro lado, vamos a lograrlo.
Les vamos
El
a romper el
Salvador
culo a todos.
ya es otro país. Este es solo el inicio. Ya no somos los mismos. Que Dios los bendiga a todos. Muchas gracias.
Es que solo alguien así me haría volver a creer en ningún político. O sea, solo alguien que dice que es lo que hace lo que dice que va a hacer. Solo ahí volvería a confiar. No, hoy en día no confío absolutamente en nadie. Creo que lo primero que hizo el chabón así a nivel internacional, que empezó a llamar mucho la atención, fue lo de que el Bitcoin es moneda legal en El Salvador. Creo que esa fue una de las primeras noticias, al menos que yo vi del chabón. Y la otra es la pelea contra la inseguridad del loco, que es una locura. La vi la de la ONU, sí. Me gustó bastante más esta de Tucker Carlson que la otra.
Today we live in a moment in history where a lot of people genuinely and sincerely despise their own leaders. They don't trust them. They don't believe their leaders are acting on their behalf. They don't think their leaders are competent. They don't think their leaders are decent people. Virtually all of the developed world
Completamente de acuerdo con este chabón. Ahí 100%.
is still purportedly democratic, but you will look a long time to find a president of
Buddy dice, en Chile se decía lo mismo de Boric, que haría maravillas. Cuando salió presidente fue igual que los demás. Eso es a lo que voy, boludo. Que yo hoy en día no confío en ninguno porque desde que tengo uso de razón ahora, dicen que van a hacer cosas que después no hacen y hacen completamente lo contrario. Entonces, yo no confío en ninguno. Sorry, pero no voy a poner mi confianza por delante del hecho. Cuando vea que lo hagan, yo no tengo ningún problema en reconocer, uy, qué bien que está esto, que esto está muy piola, esto está muy mal, esto está muy bien. No es de necio de estar en contra, que todo lo que hacen está mal. Hijos de puta.
any country who has overwhelming support from his own voters. That's just true. It's very odd if you think about it. So we thought it might be interesting to speak to someone who is, no exaggeration, the single most popular democratically elected president of any country in the world by far. A man who enjoys support from his population measured outside sources in the high 80s to the 90%.
Fuentes externas, no del gobierno, no lo dice el INDEC. Lo tira fuentes externas. 90% no.
That's how much
no
support he
tiene
has.
sentido.
Contrast that with our own president, whose support hovers in the mid-30s. But Nayib Bukele, the president of El Salvador, is overwhelmingly popular. Why is that exactly? Well, he's agreed to spend the next hour telling us, and we are honored to have him join us in studio. President Bukele, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Tucker, for having me.
So I'm going to just ask you the obvious
muy
question,
buen
why you're
inglés
so
tiene el
popular,
chabón,
but let me just give you one guess that I thought we
Muy
had
buen
dinner last
inglés.
night until 1 a.m. Here in our barn, and I was talking to our producers after the dinner, and you're not the first head of state that we've talked to or had dinner with. You talked less about yourself than any politician I think I've ever eaten with. So I don't know if that was a pose. You kept it going for like 5 hours, which was impressive. Maybe because you don't make it all about you. Maybe that's one of the reasons you're so popular.
I don't know. Probably if we have talked about me for 5 hours, it would be very boring, or we have cut short the dinner probably.
Well, politicians talk about themselves endlessly.
Yeah, that's why.
They're never bored by it.
Yeah, they never bore themselves, but they probably bore everybody else. So, you know.
It's interesting.
We really kept it going because we talked some, not only me, but we talked about very interesting issues regarding
But you
the world and
seemed interested
regarding.
in them. You weren't.
Of course, because you know civilization is in a very important moment in history.
Yes.
Lo otro que decía el otro día, de que ser político, pero hacerlo bien, debe ser muy gratificante, boludo. Ser un buen político. Estamos acostumbrados a políticos de mierda y que todos van por sus propios intereses, el nivel de corrupción, bla, bla, bla. No quiero repetir 1000 veces. Pero hay trabajos que son gratificantes. Imagínate realmente hacer las cosas bien, boludo. no por tus propios intereses, tipo, laburar de eso, que te paguen tu sueldo, que te paguen tu cosa, o sea, porque que te tengas que olvidar de lo que es financieramente, es tu trabajo, pero hacerlo piola, amigo. No, no con intereses propios de ver si gano la próxima elección o a ver si cuánta plata hago hasta que en los últimos 4 años que me voy. ¿Cómo hago para tener toda esta plata en negro para que no quede atada a mí? No invertir todo el tiempo en eso, sino invertirlo en, ok, ¿qué hay que hacer? Hay que mejorar las cloacas de esto, ok, ¿cómo podemos hacerlo? No recaudamos tanto, estos no, a ver, de acá tendríamos que llevar el agua acá para que en este lugar se pueda producir tal cosa, bueno, tendríamos que hacer necesitamos energía, ¿en dónde? En el norte, entonces, ¿qué tenemos? Este río, bueno, habría que hacer una represa acá y planificar todo eso, debería ser recontra piola, boludo. Re gratificante. Y ver que en el transcurso del tiempo lo que vas haciendo le va mejorando la vida a un montón de gente porque tienen capacidad de tener mejores trabajos, tienen más recursos a disposición. Sería buenísimo como laburo.
Human civilization, of course, and it's very interesting to talk about it and to think about it. And every country and every society in the world is part of this human civilization, and the path that every micro society takes into that civilization, it has to do a lot with our understanding of it. So I think it's important to talk about it and discuss it and to understand it a little, more so than talking about, politics or...
Yeah, you didn't even, for a political leader, you didn't even mention politics, which I thought was very, very interesting and said something very good about you. But I'm going to assume that you're so popular because you've improved your country.
Yes.
That's why leaders are popular.
I mean, that's the main thing a politician should do.
Yes.
It's work, right?
Yeah, of course. And I've been to El Salvador 3 times in my life, twice while you were president, and I've seen that you have improved it.
Sí,
We did a whole
4 años de
documentary
mandato,
on
100%
how
que va a
you
ganar.
reduced the crime rate in El Salvador from the highest murder rate in the
No
world,
no
pretty
tiene
much,
manera de
to one of the
perder.
lowest. But I wonder, just big picture for a second, how do you, as the head of state, measure the health of a country?
Well, I would think there's indicators that will measure the health of a country. The World Bank and IMF and the UN and international organizations will measure the health of a country based on GDP or economic output, or they will use this types of measurements that are, they're totally fake because they don't really measure if a country is doing good or is doing bad.
Yes. They're fake.
Yeah, they're fake. Yeah.
How is GDP fake?
Oh well, if we're two guys here, and I say, "Hey, Tucker, I'll pay you $1,000 if you drink this glass of water," right? And you say, "Okay, sure," and you drink it. I pay you $1,000, and then you say, "Hey, I'll pay you $1,000 if you drink my glass of water." So I drink your glass of water, and you pay me $1,000. So basically, nobody's any richer. I just got the same $1,000 I gave you in the first place. So we just drank 2 glasses of water. But according to GDP, you just increased GDP by $2,000 and you created 2 jobs. Right? So you just, and really, if you report that to the IRS, you just created 2 jobs, 2 $1,000 jobs of drinking water people, and we increased economic output by $2,000 by creating a service that's drinking your water service in twice. So. And that established with a value of $1,000 because the market value is $1,000. Since I pay you $1,000 for it, and you pay me $1,000 for it. So of course, this is it's an exaggeration, although it would be measured like that if you report it to the IRS.
Muy buen inglés.
But it just portrays how these indicators don't really measure the health of a society, and common sense issues that you would think it would measure the health of a society. They don't measure them anymore, or they do measure them, but they don't. It's not in the top column. It's just just like an extra factor. But it doesn't really make any sense because what really people want is to be good, to be with their family, to be safe, and those things aren't measured anymore. So you would think that that those indicators would be of great value. And they have some value, but they're mostly fake, and they don't really represent the health of a society.
So I think that's very wise, and also there's quite a bit of pressure on heads of state to play along with fake measurements. Correct?
Yes,
There's lots of
I
international.
mean, we
bodies.
have to play along with them, too. Of course, everybody does.
But as someone who runs a country, how do you personally measure?
Esta es la parte que les decía que me parece muy inteligente cómo habla de cómo critica los sistemas, digamos, de cómo los miden o cómo les piden información y todo eso. Da su opinión, pero dice, pero hay que entender que si te piden que le hables de esa manera, bueno, daremos los datos que nos piden y todo para seguirles el cuento, digamos, ¿no? Para seguirles para tener una buena relación.
Measure the health of your own country?
Well, we have the current measurements that I just said they just told you they are fake, but we still measure them. We have to, and because international organizations will base their predictions about the country with those
Yes.
with those measurements. But you have other measurements which I think are more important, like for example, safety,
Yeah.
or crime rate, or homeless rate, or jobs, or inflation, or what about the important values of society? How are they doing?
Yes.
For example, right now the whole world economic system is trying to destroy some of the values that are more important to human beings, and not only to human beings morally, but financially. For example, savings. Savings would be a very important economic measurement, right? I mean, it's very important. Supposedly, it's very important for people to save money, right? If you earn $10,000, you should spend $8,000 and save $2,000.
Yes.
Instead of the opposite, right? Spend $12,000 and
Oh, 2000.
owe $2,000. But right now, the concept of savings has been destroyed because it doesn't make any sense to save money anymore. Because if you save money, let's say if you're in the 80s and you saved $50,000, which you could buy a house with at that time, and right now with $50,000, you can maybe change the floor.
Yeah.
So if you saved $50,000, then you have been robbed of 90% of your money now, because you could probably buy a house in the 80s that was maybe worth $600,000, $700,000 right now. So you were robbed of your money, and by the system, with devaluation, with inflation,
Yes.
with printing more money.
No está hablando de Argentina, ¿ah? Está hablando de Estados Unidos. Y este ejemplo se lo está hablando de Estados Unidos a Tucker Carlson porque es de ahí. Te digo, para los chicos que me decían que Estados Unidos no tiene inflación, es un problemita que existe en Estados Unidos, que lo tienen, hace décadas tiene inflación.
With no, they say the Federal Reserve is nothing federal and has no reserves, right? So they do print more money, and they rob you from your wealth and from your savings, and that's immoral. But it's not only immoral, but it also destroys some basic economic principles, like, for example, saving or your pension. I would guess you're very fluent in the American.
Me imagino que con esto que está hablando, está dolarizado El Salvador. Ya hace bastantes años está dolarizado. No me acuerdo bien cuándo fue que dolarizó, pero está dolarizado. Me imagino que en algún momento algo van a hacer con eso. No sé qué. Obviamente que está el Bitcoin también, pero el Bitcoin ya es algo medio raro, ¿no? Más alternativo. Pero algo van a hacer con eso.
Dream,
Yes.
you work hard, you can buy a home, send your kids to college, and have a good retirement. But now, if you save for retirement and you saved all your life, maybe for 40 years working, now you come into age and say, well, now my savings are not enough to sustain me, and that's because you were robbed. So, and you were legally robbed. So then those types of measurements, which are not only not measured anymore, but are also being destroyed, the fundamentals of them. So it's hard to try to fix a society where the system itself is trying to destroy the basic fundamentals that make a society successful. And you would guess what's the purpose on it. I really don't know, but I don't have any proof of their intent, but I mean, it's very clear, and there's proof of what they are doing.
So, obviously,
Es muy inteligente, boludo. El chabón explica cuál es uno de los problemas que tienen, pero no tira una falopa del por qué. No tira una conspirativa del por qué lo están haciendo. Se reserva eso. Dice, esto es lo que está pasando. Yo la verdad que no sé, no puedo decir el por qué. No, es muy inteligente. Se nota el chabón que es una luz. Se lo nota muy, muy, muy inteligente, boludo. Muy, muy vivo.
you're opposed to crime.
Yes.
You've been very tough on it. You lowered the crime rates in El Salvador. So no one's excusing crime. On the other hand, if I walk into a liquor store or a bodega and hold it up with a gun and steal $3,000, I go to jail, and I should.
Yeah.
But if I devalue the U.S. currency and make old people penniless at scale, I don't go to jail.
No, you don't. It's like, imagine if you go. Let's portray a movie example, like a bank robbery, right? These guys go into a bank, they go in with guns, they steal all the money in the bank, the whole vault. I mean, they open the vault, they get all the money within the vault, they take it, they don't leave a penny in the bank. So you will say, oh, this bank robbers, they robbed the bank, right? But you know, a bank, I mean, any bank will have, I don't know, let's say $500 billion, one bank, right?
Yes.
They can have $500
In total assets.
Yeah, total assets, $500 billion. Now, they are only required to keep $50 billion in assets, in liquidity.
Yes.
The rest can be, in loans, real estate. They can have the other money invested, right?
Yes.
Mostly in loans to their clients. So the bank only has 10% liquidity, which is $50 billion. Now, out of those $50 billion, 90% of it, it's online. I mean, it's zeros in a screen.
Yes.
It's not really cash, right?
Yes.
Bills and coins. So you would think maybe, 10% of those 50 billion, they have it in cash.
Yes.
That would be a lot, but let's say they have 10% in cash, in bills and coins. So that would be 5 billion. But if this, huge bank has, let's say,
In bills and coins.
200 branches. So they have, offices all over, in Florida,
Ulrich,
New
no,
York, in California. They have branches all over. So they will have, 2.5 million? That would be, like 500 billion, 50 billion in assets, 5 billion in cash, and then divided by 200, that would be 5 times 5, that would be like 25 million per bolt.
Yeah.
But that would be
Es larguísimo. lo explico.
10% of 10%, that would be 1%, and then this will be like 0.1% of 1%. That would be the equivalent of the bank robbers,
Yes.
the bank robbers took. So they would take 0.1% of 1%. Let aside that they would have insurance and they would get all the money back. They just robbed the bank out of 0.5% of 1% of their net worth, of their assets. They will go, rightfully, to jail for 20 or 30 years. But if the Fed prints $10 trillion out of thin air because there's no reserves that would, support this new printing of new money, they will just rob you of, 20% of your savings, of all human, all people they use as dollars, including all Americans, including all Salvadorans, by the way, because we use the U.S. Dollar as a currency.
Y acá ahora va a explicar lo que yo el otro día decía, de que cuando con la dolarización ellos están dolarizados, y justamente él explica el problema que tienen. O sea, de primera mano, ellos están dolarizados, tienen el dólar, es su moneda de ahorro, digamos, del laburante es el dólar, de toda la gente. Y el problema que tienen es ese, boludo, que Estados Unidos imprime dinero igual, muchacho. Y se los cogen a los salvadoreños.
They will not pay a penny or a fine or anything because it's a
Pero Winilero, a ver, el chabón no dolarizó. Esto está dolarizado hace un montón de tiempo. Lo está reconociendo como un problema. Yo lo que veo de un chabón que va agarrando problemas y pone todo el Estado para romperle el orto a ese problema, como lo hizo con la seguridad, ahora dice que lo va a hacer con la corrupción, y va a ir haciendo concha todo lo que vea que está mal. Si lo está reconociendo es porque algo que va a querer hacer con ese sistema, boludo. Tiene que haber un sistema en el cual la moneda, la moneda, el billete, o sea, sea una reserva de valor, amigo. Y esté anclada y que tenga un valor y se mantenga en el tiempo, boludo. Tiene que existir algo, boludo. Lo tienen que poder hacer de alguna manera.
it's a legal theft.
But it's a crime anyway.
Well,
it's a moral crime.
It's a moral crime. It's not a legal crime, and that's why I think there's civilization changes coming just because people that's been happening for quite a while now,
Yes.
probably since the 70s. But right now, people are starting to waking up and seeing these things and saying, "Oh, hold on, I maybe don't want to be on board these things," and of course they don't want to, I think it's probably a new economic system is on the works.
Ellos tienen elección en el 2024. No hay dudas que gana este chabón, amigo. No hay dudas. No hay dudas.
And it's going to be messy because you will have, the Western powers with one economic system. You will have probably the BRICS with another economic system. And the BRICS are growing, and they'll probably be more than half of the GDP soon. Not only because the countries are growing itself, but they are inviting Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Nigeria, Argentina. So if you add up all those up, it will be above 50% of GDP. So they'll be the greatest economic power. And they will try to do an alternate economic system. I don't think people that don't want the Fed to devaluate are going to go to the other system because it's not, it's not attractive for them to change from the Fed to Russia. It's not,
Right.
or to the OPEC plus. It doesn't make sense for them. But you will see more and more people in the West, or what we call the West, trying to go into alternative systems that are more independent, that are unconfiscable, that are uncensored, and that are totally decentralized. So if you go into there, you would think, in principle, of course, we have to see, but in principle, you would think that you'd be safe of having your wealth taken away by a political decision.
So our Fed policy affects the entire world, every country in the
Definitely.
world. But it affects El Salvador directly and immediately in the same way it affects us because you trade in the US dollar.
Yes, a little worse, because we do get all the devaluation and we get all the inflation, but we get none of the spending. So
Esto es lo que decía, ¿ves? Que lo dice él. Se lo dice él. Tiene sentido lo que dice, amigo. Cuando lo dijo dije, claro, amigo, tiene toda la razón. Porque allá no le van... Cuando imprime Estados Unidos imprime y paga cosas para Estados Unidos. No te va a decir, mirá, El Salvador, nosotros sabemos que ustedes están dolarizados. Imprimí 1 trillón. Tomá, en relación a la cantidad de población y bla, 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 vos te damos 200 millones para que también licúes y hagas algo con eso, no sé. Les repito esta parte. Esto es lo que me parece clave con el tema de la dolarización, porque probablemente Milei gane y probablemente dolaricen, entonces...
get all,
That's because you trade in the US dollar.
yes, a little worse, because we do get all the devaluation and we get all the inflation, but we get
La devaluación y la inflación la recibís completa. Cuando ellos imprimen, cuando Estados Unidos imprime, como por ejemplo en la cuarentena imprimieron para dar los planes sociales por fondos de emergencia con la cuarentena, digamos con el COVID, imprimieron, billete de 1.000, planes de $1.000 para la gente sin laburar, laburando, sin laburar no importa, manténgase en la casa, tomen, guita. Toda esa guita de impresión es devaluación directa.
none of the spending. So, yeah, so
You can't print it.
we can't print it. Yeah, you can print US dollars.
Very good point.
Yeah.
So you have a PhD in the downside of Fed policy, I think.
Well, not if I understand.
yeah. No, but I mean, you.
No, volvemos a lo mismo, es que son muy mogólicos. O sea, su problema es que son muy mogólicos. Se habla de dolarización, la gente va a ahorrar en dólar, la gente no va a ahorrar en sol peruano, en peso boliviano, van a ahorrar en dólares la gente. ¿Me entienden? Lo de competencia de moneda me chupa absolutamente los dos huevos porque nadie va a ahorrar en yuan, en rublo, en euro. La gente va a ahorrar en dólares, amigo. La moneda principal, que va a seguir siendo la que es, va a ser dólar. ¿Qué me ponen? Va a ser competencia de moneda, Carlos. Competencia de moneda. Mi Dios, mi ley habla de competencia de moneda. Sí, habla de competencia de moneda, pero después cuando le preguntan es, sí, vamos a dolarizar, vamos a agarrar el slip, ¿cuántos dólares tenemos? Dolarización, dolarización. Después vos ahorrás lo que quieras, sí, ahorrás lo que quieras, pero la tuya va a estar en dólares. ¿Cuánto tenía? Tenés tantos dólares, listo.
The concept.
Yeah, you have to run a country that's subject to it.
Yeah.
And so you've chosen a new path very famously. Tell us what you've done and why.
Well, we haven't changed the fundamentals of our economy just because you don't change the fundamentals of an economy from one day to another because that
Yes.
would be very messy.
Yes.
Even if you do things right, it would be messy and you don't want mess, right? You want things to grow, you want the economy to grow, you want people to be happy, you don't want people to, the economy to do well, you want your country to do well.
¿Ven?
So
Ahora
we,
que decían, ¿por qué el que me estaba diciendo? Dolarizaron, que se jodan. Mirá lo que está diciendo. No podemos hacer todo quilombo. Hay que buscar la manera.
we're doing small steps to change some things and to give people different options. We're not changing everything right away, but we're giving people different options. So we made Bitcoin legal tender. We're the only country in the world where Bitcoin is legal tender. I mean, Bitcoin is used all over the world, even in countries where it is banned, just because you can't ban it. I mean, it's uncensorable. You can't, even if you want to censor it, you can't.
Yes.
But the only country in the world where Bitcoin is legal tender is El Salvador. That gives us an advantage in the
Pero a
new.
ver, dolaricemos o no dolaricemos, o si es competencia de moneda, a lo que sea. Lo que yo les quiero dejar en claro es que por más que haya competencia de moneda, lo amen al peluca Milei, lo tengan tatuado en el orto, es que el dólar tiene inflación. ¿Lo entienden eso? Para que sepan y tengan la data. Si ahorran en dólares, van a perder capacidad de compra en el futuro. Eso es lo que tiene que estar claro. Después, si quieren ahorrar en yuan, esto está genial. Solamente quiero que sepan eso. Que no lo obvien, porque son fanáticos y con su competencia de moneda. Y no, esa es la mejora de quinto nivel. En Super Saiyan 4, cuando el peluca sea. Cuando entre en modo Saru, Milei esté en fase Saru, cuando esté la luna llena. Ahí vamos a tener competencia total de moneda. Pero hasta que esté la Super Saiyan 4, que con la melena toda rubia hasta abajo, ahí todavía no. Ahí vamos a estar en plan de dolarización oficial. Ahora, en Super Saiyan 2, ahí puede ser que le haga mano a mano a Freezer, pero todavía no va a haber dólar. Va a haber competencia anal de... ¿Qué discuten, amigo? ¿Qué carajo es lo que discuten? Eso es lo que me pregunto. ¿Qué carajo es lo que discuten?
In the new economic system that's
Te lo
in the-
dice un chabón que tiene su país dolarizado y te dice, nos están rompiendo el culo, amigo. Eso lo está diciendo. Estados Unidos nos está cogiendo el orto, Master. Tenemos que hacer algo. En el futuro tenemos que hacer algo. Ya metimos el Bitcoin, lo metimos como alternativa, pero no es solo en Bitcoin. Y aparte el Bitcoin tiene sus problemas, no sirve para comprar caramelos, por las fees que tiene. O sea, hay muchas cosas para las cuales el Bitcoin no sirve. Por eso tampoco se puede hacer de manera masiva y que se use para todo. Se usa para ciertas cosas, se puede utilizar para ciertas cosas. Como reserva de valor, tampoco, porque tiene una gran variación. Entonces, si vos lo querés usar de acá a 2 años, no sabes si va a estar más caro, más barato. Tampoco puedes decir estoy reservando valor ahí. Puedes hacer una apuesta, puedes hacer una inversión de riesgo alto en Bitcoin, pero no es una moneda, boludo. No es lo que debería ser la gente que tenía monedas de oro, que tienen un peso, y más o menos, loco, lo que tenés es una moneda de oro que tiene un cierto peso, y el oro se mantiene bastante parejo en el tiempo en cuanto vale, y es una moneda que es de oro. Yo tengo moneda de oro, y bueno, como hacían los piratas, amigo. Tengo 3 monedas de esta. ¿Cuánto vale? Un huevo. ¿Cuánto es ese huevo? Vale esto. Se mantiene, más o menos en el tiempo se mantiene. No, estos papeles de colores, amigo, que es una locura lo que fluctúa.
The works. And we have had some benefits from it. We have increased tourism by 95%. And that's in part because of Bitcoin. There's a lot of Bitcoiners that want to go to the only country where Bitcoin is legal tender. We have Bitcoin conferences, etc. So we're getting a lot of tourism for it. We're getting a lot of private investment also because there are some people escaping, the
Si
censorship.
no me equivoco, ¿no? Lemon Cash o algo de esto no está en El Salvador, por ejemplo. Todo un negocio, ¿puede ser? Lemon Cash o cuál es la que está en El Salvador, que es Argentina, la empresa en realidad. Velo es. Todas operan allá por esto mismo. Esa es toda guita que le queda a El Salvador en vez de Argentina, por ejemplo.
Or they're trying to escape the laws, trying to ban this new technology. So they go into countries that are more open to these technologies. And of course, they would go to a country that is not only open, but has actually embraced the currency as its own. So we get a lot of investment, we'll get a lot of tourism. And the other thing we get is that we get some rebranding. Because El Salvador, a lot of people don't know anything about El Salvador.
Igual estoy con vos, Virkingo. La gente en el país tiene que laburar, amigo. O sea, tiene que haber laburo, el laburo tiene que ser digno, o sea, que tenés que producir cosas que la gente quiera comprar, no solamente para el mercado interno, sino que lo puedas exportar para tener diferentes divisas, para tener más competitividad. Pero tenés que vender cosas que la gente quiera comprar. Si vos vendés mierda, no mucha gente te va a querer comprar. Entonces, si le obligás a la gente con una pistola en la cabeza que compre tu mierda, te la van a comprar solamente porque le estás apuntando en la cabeza. Vos lo que tenés que lograr es venderle un iPhone y que la gente lo quiera comprar, el iPhone. Vender ese tipo de cosas. Vender un mate y que la gente quiera comprar el mate argentino. Es una vergüenza que el argentino tome mate en un termo Stanley, boludo. O sea, eso no debería dar vergüenza, ¿entendés? Que no hay un termo. Debemos ser lo que más usamos termo a nivel mundial, junto con los uruguayos. No puede ser que no hay un termo que le gane a ese termo de mierda. ¿Entendés? Lo milagro, dice, pero la gente va con el Stanley, amigo. Se compran el Stanley, es mejor o aguanta más. Todo bien con lo milagro, pero la gente va a comprar el Stanley, boludo. Y no pudimos hacer uno que digas, no, este es mejor. Lo probamos el Stanley y es una verga al lado de este. No podemos, amigo. No podemos, somos unos pelotudos.
Some people know something about El Salvador would be bad things like MS-13,
Yes.
right? Or the Civil War in the 80s.
Of course.
But if you're, if you're a Bitcoiner or if you're into technology or into new economic systems or into unconfiscable wealth, then you will listen and you will learn about El Salvador in a different light. We have a project of building a new city. We're mining Bitcoin with the power of volcanoes. So these types of things are not only projects that are very important for the development of our country, but they're also it's also a rebranding. A rebranding that will probably cost hundreds of millions of dollars, and for us it will cost nothing because it's just making bold and good decisions, and people will like them. So
People will like them, but then, I mean, our current economic system has a lot of stakeholders.
oh, they hate it, yeah.
They hate it. Who hates it?
Well, the IMF, the
Yeah.
World Bank, the Fed, and most of the, if not all of the economic publications, you name it, Bloomberg, CNBC, Financial Times, Forbes.
Exacto.
they-
Sí, man, usamos remera Supreme, boludo. Yo uso Vans, o sea. Estamos derrumbados, amigos. Si no podés tener unos pares, ropa nacional de la cual te sientas orgulloso, esté buena y la compre, boludo. Y sea... Esos son pelotudez, amigo. ¿Cuánto te puede costar tener una buena remera, boludo?
We have got a lot of, a
Por
lot of
eso te doy a cosas sencillas como un termo, una ropa. Cosas básicas, boludo. Cosas básicas. Después, ¿qué querés? ¿Competir con, no, somos ensambladores de microchip? No, amigos, si no tenemos, no podés vender unas remeras, boludo.
bad press and fake news and FUD, like FUD, like Bitcoiners call it, from this financial publications. They will print lies. But, there's something special about lies is that they don't last they don't last long. So when people realize that these things don't make any sense, or they see from themselves the difference, like you, for example, you have gone 3 times to El Salvador in different
Yes.
in different times, and so they see things into a different light, and they see reality. So reality always imposes itself over lies, just because it's real. So
Gracias, Cecilio. Gracias por las 5
it's easier to uphold it, or
Yanni, gracias
it's
por los
easier
16.
to show it or to demonstrate it's true. So we're taking some heat, but if you look a little back, they didn't care about us before. So right now, yes, we do have bad publications in Forbes and Financial Times, but they weren't writing about El Salvador before. It's not like we lose anything. So, and there's other publications writing interesting stories about El Salvador. Some guy this is a joke, of course, it's not, but he just said El Salvador has the most documentaries per capita. Because there's a lot of people doing documentaries about Bitcoin adoption, about surf, because you have a lot of great surfing in El Salvador. So they have a lot of security measures we're implementing against
Gracias, Tecos.
MS-13.
Muchas gracias, loco.
So we're getting a lot of good press.
¿Vos pensás que Milei es político cuando 54 de los 56 años ha trabajado en el sector privado? Es pegarle a alguien que no tiene nada que ver. Yo no le pego a nadie, amigo. ¿Qué es pegar? No entiendo nada de lo que escribiste aparte, ¿eh? No entendí nada de lo que escribiste igual.
And we're getting bad press too, but the guys printing the bad press didn't write anything about El Salvador before, so it's not that we're losing
Pero voten
their
tranquilo, voten lo que quieren, chicos. Voten a Bullrich si quieren. A mí me come la pija.
audiences, and also their audiences are diminishing.
Right.
Ya pasé
Because
cada mierda
they're not
del
even-
país vivir, voy a vivir igual.
It's not even close. They're not as important
que
as they
muera,
used to
viviré.
be. They're actually
peor.
almost irrelevant, but they have their legacy
chorro en
names.
la calle,
But
con
who
memes.
buys a Time magazine anymore? I mean, I don't know anybody. But before it was a very important thing in a kiosk to buy a Newsweek or a Time magazine. But
La
now
cantidad de
who
razón.
buys a magazine anymore? Who subscribes to a magazine online? Nobody. I mean, it's just really
Igual, yo bancaba mucho el internet cuando el internet realmente bancaba la expresión del internet en contra del establishment, de cómo se hacían las cosas. Pero hoy en día cada vez veo más en internet y en redes sociales y todo, cada vez más las mismas maniobras, los mismos métodos. Como que fue mutando. Empezó siendo realmente distinto internet con expresión de la gente y hoy en día veo que es básicamente lo mismo, copiar los mismos formatos, de qué se habla, el chusmerío, el culo, la teta, por acá, la joda, el gozo. Siento como que hay de todo igual, sigue el nicho, sigue, digamos, sigue el rechazo a esos métodos de comunicación tradicionales y la venta barata de interacciones. Y terminó igual, porque obviamente eso ya se sabe que funciona, ¿no?
names, legacy names,
Yes.
in their Twitter accounts. So it's not really, they're not really mainstream media anymore. They're just accounts in social media with a legacy name of being mainstream media.
And you don't seem to care what they say.
Well, yeah, I mean, I have learned not to care. But of course, at the beginning, I do care. I did care because for me, I thought they were important. Now that I see they aren't, and since they are not treating us that well, I've learned not to care. And I think it's better because this, and if you look at the ratings, for example, the amount of subscribers they have, it's really ridiculous. I mean,
Los
nobody's
cagan
watching them.
palos.
Really, nobody watches CNN anymore. It's like, we were talking yesterday about in El Salvador, we have this news show, of course, news shows, of course, local. And the news, the news show, in,
It's like nightly news.
yeah, the nightly news, the main nightly news, local nightly news.
Channel 4.
Yeah, Channel 4. They have like 1 million viewers every night. Out of 7 million people that lives in El Salvador, that live in El Salvador, we have 1 million viewers, which is not much. 14% of the population is watching. And then CNN, in prime time, we have like 500,000 viewers. So Channel 4 back in El Salvador has twice the ratings of CNN in the whole United States with 300 million people. So, I mean,
Who cares?
it doesn't make any sense
cares?
for them to be
Ordinary
airing their shows anymore. I mean, it's
Why do you think they do?
well because they're still sponsors that think that people are watching. It's like, I don't know, probably senior citizen products that they think that the people in charge of their marketing, they think that people still watch CNN because they watched CNN before, and probably they're not even watching CNN anymore. So, I mean, they're just airing this thing, and they will come up to senses and say, okay, let's stop airing this. It happens with some magazines and some publications. They
Yes.
just stop printing and they go online. It's their way of saying, okay, we know nobody's buying the magazine anymore. So it will happen.
So CNN will become a Twitter account.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it'll probably become a online broadcasting before, but we know it failed with CNN Plus, so it will it'll become a Twitter account. Yeah.
So one thing we were talking about yesterday that I didn't fully understand. You have said, as someone who lives outside the United States and been to a lot of places, that the tone and worldview, the perspective of American media, is basically the same as the perspective of the Salvadoran media, as the Dutch media. It's like all media seem to have the same worldview.
Yes, because it's a franchise. It's like McDonald's or Burger King or Pizza Hut. So you have headquarters and then you have franchises. So the media, most of the media, of course not you, but most of the media, they will work like franchises. So if they print something in the New York Times, let's say,
No, lo orinó a CNN.
something about
Le
the
pegó una
war in
meada
Ukraine.
tremenda.
So they will print something in the New York Times, but it's the same thing you'll find in Mexico, it's the same thing you'll read in Brazil, it's the same thing you'll read in Argentina, it's the same thing you'll read in Africa, in any country in Africa, in Europe, and it's the same thing. It's the same articles with some twitches, some different wording, different language, of course, but it's at the end it's the same line, the same narrative.
Mirá, yo con el tema de los 8.000 o los 30.000, la verdad que no opiné nada de ahí porque no tengo ni idea si fueron 8.000 o 30.000. No tengo yo las cifras, primero no viví en esa época, no tengo ni idea de cuántos se denunciaron, no tengo ni idea realmente cuánta gente murió, desapareció, no tengo ni idea, amigo. Posta que no tengo ni la más puta idea. No sé. Creo que las cifras oficiales son esas de 8.000 y algo y después las no oficiales de 30.000. Entonces, entre ahí son un montón de muertes igual. Y el Estado actuó de esa manera, la dictadura actuó de esa manera igual. Por 8.000 o por 30.000, la atrocidad que hicieron es la misma.
The same propaganda because they are franchises. So they will work as franchises. They will be real independent media like you, for example. But
Pero es que da igual, no cambia nada entre 5.000 y 10.000 o 30.000. Es lo mismo, es un montón de gente. Tampoco es que uno dice 2 millones y el otro dice, no, fueron 200. No, bueno, ahí la diferencia es grande, porque entre 10.000 y 30.000 no es tanta la diferencia.
most of them, they're not independent. They just, they have to be and respect the narrative, or they will be ousted from the group, and that's
Pero no cambia nada. No cambia nada, amigo. Entre 10.000 y 30.000 no cambia nada. Para evaluar el delito. O sea,
death for them because they survive because they're in this worldwide franchise of the mainstream media, if we want to call it mainstream media.
So that suggests that, like,
sí cambia, dice todos los colgados de subsidio. Yo creo que hay mucho odio hacia el plan social, muchachos, y está más que visto que el robo general y la pérdida de guita del Estado está en el robo, en la estructura de corrupción que tiene el Estado, no en si le dan 70.000 pesos a un villero que no tiene laburo, que está tirado ahí en la casa. Eso no te cambia la economía, amigo. O sea, le pagaste a 2 millones de villeros que no van a laburar un plan y después hacen una ruta de 70 kilómetros que no la hacen, se la llevan toda, boludo. No cambia nada, amigo. Te tiene que indignar la ruta que te robaron. ¿Entendés? O que pavimenten 7 veces Hipólito Yrigoyen cuando ya está pavimentada y después hay gente que no tiene cloaca. Y eso te tiene que indignar. No que le den un plan social a alguien por 70.000 pesos que no labura. Es una manera de que vos pierdas el enfoque en dónde vos tenés que poner el enfoque. Vos te tenés que calentar con toda la que se afana, pero no. En vez de eso decir, le están dando 70.000 pesos a un vago que no labura, a una vaga por tener un hijo le dieron tanta plata. Sí, está bien, enójense por los dos si quieren. Pero principalmente entre las dos, si solo se van a enojar con una, y le van a decir, no, qué locura, le dan un plan a un tipo que no labura.
Economic.
Se afanan calles enteras, se roban edificios, hectáreas, están robando a otro level, están robando.
Measurements, it's all kind of fake.
Well, most publications will always be propaganda. That's what always happens. Not now.
Escuelas, hospitales, tomógrafos.
Since the
todo,
beginning
todo.
of
Yes.
media,
Son todos ricos los políticos, boludo.
the concept of media, it's propaganda. That's the concept of it. Of course, like everything, you would have exceptions, but that's the concept. It's like, it's the concept of pharmaceuticals is that you're sick, so they can cure you of your disease, right? If everybody is healthy, then there's no business in having a pharmaceutical company, right?
Yeah.
You need people to be sick.
Yes.
Right? That's the concept. Now, of course, there will be good pharmaceutical companies and good pharmacists. Of course, there's good people everywhere. There's bad people everywhere. But the whole concept, the notion of having, it's like, if you sell weapons, you need wars, right? Why would you sell tanks and missiles if you don't have wars where you can use tanks, right? You
Right.
cannot use tanks to go and hunt deer, right? You have to use tanks to go to war. So you need wars so you can sell tanks. And so the concept of it is like that.
Vos te das cuenta que le pegó a la farmacéutica, a Estados Unidos, pero de una manera políticamente correcta. Obviamente muy crítico, pero no yendo al choque como un loco de mierda, ¿entendés? Es muy inteligente, boludo. Muy sutil.
So the concept of media is propaganda. That's the whole concept, to try to control the minds of most of the population with the narrative, with the official narrative. That's why you would see most of the media always goes with the same narrative and will try to outcast anybody that doesn't have the same narrative. Like they try to outcast you because you have the same narrative as
That's true.
as the mainstream media has. That's why they hate you, because you have a lot of audience and you shouldn't. People are watching you, but you shouldn't. They shouldn't be watching you. They should be watching the mainstream media propaganda. That's the concept.
Yes.
So it has been like that since the beginning. But the difference today is that people are more interested in what's really happening. And we have social media now. So once you
Es que
have
Internet se le fue de las manos, boludo. Yo creo que Internet se les escapó como un virus y no pudieron frenarlo. Internet es una de las mejores cosas que le pasó a esta sociedad como para romper una cantidad de esquemas que estaban muy, muy mal, boludo. La gente estaba muy controlada hasta dónde podía llegar y qué es lo que podía hacer, boludo.
something that's portrayed wrongfully into in the BBC, for example. Before, people watching the BBC, they just watch it, but now they will tape it with their phones. They will upload it to social media and say, "Look at this! This is fake," and people will start. It will become viral, and even if so social media starts to take down the videos and try to ban the what the videos say because it's an infringement of their policy or whatever. They try to control. Still, they try to control it, but it's very hard because people are hyper connected, and that has bad things, of course, but it has a good thing. And the good thing is that it's very hard to sell lies to an entire population that is so interconnected that they will spot lies right away. It's like if you say, "Oh, there's a protest in right now in I don't know Nigeria," and people in Nigeria will say, "No, I'm here, and there's no protest here." It's very hard. Before it wouldn't be like that.
No,
People
how would you know?
Yeah, people would just eat the propaganda. Now people will question the propaganda. They will ask if this is true, whether this is true or false. They will contrast it with other
Hace unos
information.
meses, hace un año.
That's
11
probably
meses.
other propaganda. But then you have two different propagandas. You will contrast
Pero
them
es lo mismo. O sea, todo lo que está hablando no es nada de actualidad. Está hablando en
and see the
general.
differences. So, that's part of the demise of mainstream media is that not only technology has been giving people with millions of other options, but also people are saying, why would I pay for a content that is not worthy of my buck? I mean, it's why would I subscribe to read the Washington Post, for example, if I know it's pure propaganda? Why would I do that? I mean, it doesn't make
Claro,
any
no
sense
tiene sentido.
into a consumer's point of view.
Yes.
Gracias,
So
Dionisio,
that's
gracias por
why I
venir.
just think that all mainstream media it's on demise, and they know it. That's why they're so.
But I mean, what you're describing though is a technological reality that doesn't just undermine media, but government too.
Definitely, yeah.
Right. So how does this? I mean, it's a huge threat to government. I mean, I think most governments would rather let people have guns than free speech. Free speech is a real threat to them.
Well, that's why they hate free speech.
Yes.
One of the things that is one of the things that gets in the way of their plans and their what they want to do with the world and with the U.S. in particular is the U.S. Constitution. The U.S. Constitution is very well written, and you would think these guys that wrote it, they were very, very smart and forward-thinking.
Yes.
And when I say forward-thinking, it's not like we are talking about 5 years from now.
Yeah.
They were talking about 200 years, 250 years from when they wrote it. I mean, they're probably more than geniuses. And I'm talking.
Yes.
Eso es un problema que tenemos nosotros, creo que es de comunicación. Literalmente es una locura, boludo. Lo termo que somos como para poder escuchar a alguien que piensa distinto sobre ciertos tópicos y lo enfrente que los ponemos, porque a veces no coincidimos en un cierto detalle, ya lo categorizamos de algo. Completamente lo pones adentro de una caja y ya lo atacás por... Eso es insoportable, amigo. El no poder bancar la opinión de una persona que no es exactamente la tuya, boludo. Es durísimo eso. ¿Saben lo que nos retrasa en lo que es conversación, en crecimiento? Es una locura, boludo. Hay familiares que se pelean, boludo. Literal, hay hermanos que se pelean por opiniones políticas, por ser un partido del otro. Es una locura, amigo. No hay conversación, no hay ida y vuelta. No hay un respeto hacia la idea del otro, ¿no? Tampoco, es como... Ojo, también, cuando estás equivocado, estás equivocado. Por ejemplo, yo cuando digo, hay inflación en Estados Unidos y me dicen que no, ya está, ahí no hay, porque vos me estás mintiendo. No es que hay dos opiniones. Una cosa es el dato y el facto y otra cosa es la opinión. La opinión es, no sé, aborto sí, aborto no. No, para mí las dos posturas son viables. Te puede caer mejor una o la otra, pero las dos son viables porque las dos tienen fundamento y tienen filosofías distintas por detrás y depende de la persona, va a estar más relacionada a una que a la otra. Una te va a proteger más la vida de la madre que en este momento está viva y no la de el pibe que ya está gestado, que es lo que podría llegar a ser o que en realidad ya es un ser, ya es un ser vivo. Ya es un ser vivo que está concebido. Entonces, por ejemplo, ya en el aborto vos tenés gente que por estar a favor o por estar en contra del aborto, ya están completamente enemistados y están enemistados en todas las otras posiciones. Que probablemente las otras posiciones, si vos le decís, a ver, ¿comés? Sí, como. ¿Cagás? Sí, cagamos. ¿Te gusta? ¿Disfrutás esto? ¿Disfrutás con tu familia? Sí. Ah, mirá cómo empezás a agregarte. ¿Te gusta el fútbol? Sí, me gusta. Mirá qué bueno. Si empezás a ver los otros aspectos, estarías mucho más a favor en montones de cosas que justamente en contra. Las cosas que estés en contra o que tengas postura distinta, no te separarían. En definitiva, somos todos humanos, somos todos muy parecidos. Lo que pasa es que por pequeñas cositas nos quieren hacer enfrentar y que perdamos el diálogo. Cuando nosotros tenemos una sociedad completamente fracturada, que por cualquier boludez, ¿te gusta el Dark and Darker? ¿Sí o no? Y si me decís que no, te odio con toda mi alma. Y si me decís que sí, también, entonces ya ni hablamos, boludo. No, pará, a mí me gusta el Dark and Darker. No pasa nada que me guste el Dark and Darker. ¿Entendés? Bueno, lo del Dark and Darker parece que nadie me va a decir te odio por eso, pero me gusta Boca y a mí me gusta River. Y realmente por eso hay gente que muere y que mata. ¿Entienden? O sea, parece una locura porque endiosan el fútbol, le dan mucha más entidad de lo que tiene, que es un deporte, es un entretenimiento, pero estamos tan destruidos a nivel de principios y de fundamentos que hay gente que mata o gente que muere por ser de un club de fútbol. Que deberían compartir mucho más, porque te gusta ir a la cancha, sos fanático del fútbol, no se pueden compartir en canchas. Bueno, y eso es llevado a todo, a todos los aspectos. Entonces, lo que están buscando es que estemos completamente fracturados, divididos. Se fomenta ese tipo de actitudes. Porque lo ves, lo ves, por ejemplo, en lo que deberían ser nuestros representantes, que son los políticos, en cómo se hablan unos con los otros, cómo se tratan. Se fomenta, eso se fomenta. Les debe servir no que estemos unidos, queriendo vivir en una sociedad, una gran sociedad, que es lo que somos una gran sociedad. Todos nos necesitamos. Yo cuando voy a comprar el pan necesito que alguien le venda la harina al panadero, la leche para hacer la crema pastelera, ¿no? Nos necesitamos, boludo. Vivimos en sociedad. Vos laburás, yo te compro lo que vos producís, yo te vendo un poco de entretenimiento, vos lo comprás, sos agradecido con eso. Pero el odiar, a la mínima, ¿qué te gusta? ¿Vos la milanesa? No, a mí no. Bueno, entonces te pongo en contra y si estoy dispuesto a matarte por eso. Es como, pará, boludo, ¿qué estamos haciendo, amigo? Hay alguien que se beneficia de eso, ¿entendés? Y los que salimos perdiendo somos nosotros, ¿no?
The concept of strict free speech, even though, of course, the definition of free speech is that a lot of that speech you're not going to like it. That's the whole definition of it, right?
Right.
But the problem is that now with social media and with hyperconnectivity and everybody having a voice, now they want to ban free speech because now they can't control the narrative like they did before. So now they want to ban free speech, and you have world leaders come up to stage in the UN or everywhere, and they would say, "Oh, to protect free speech, we must censor some free speech so we can protect the rest of the free speech." Yeah, I'm not making this up. I'm summarizing what they said. So you would think these Western leaders of democracies, they would be promoting free speech, like they did 50 years ago, but they're not promoting it anymore. And you would have people, you would have presidents being banned from social media right here in the United
I
States
know.
while they are sitting presidents. I mean, just imagine the concept of banning, even if you don't like what he's saying, that's the whole point.
Doesn't matter, right?
Doesn't matter. In fact, it matters. You must, the true test,
Sí, de
if
Trump
it's,
está hablando.
if it's,
Estaba baneado de Twitter.
you will allow the free speech of someone you don't like, saying something you don't like.
Exacto. Si no,
That's
no
the
es libertad
whole,
de expresión. Solo,
that's the,
solo
that's the
dejar que
proof,
la
right?
gente diga lo que a
So,
vos te parece que está bien.
but just thinking of the concept of banning the free speech of a president, of a sitting president of the most powerful country in the world, shows you
¿No se la devolvió a Musk? Sí, se la devolvió la cuenta a Musk. Porque supuestamente Musk estaba a favor del free speech. Fue como una de las principales causas por lo que compró Twitter, ¿no? Básicamente por eso.
that the real powers now are way above the US government power.
Yes.
So the guy, he's not in charge anymore, but the guy that was in charge of the US government wasn't able to speak because he was banned from all platforms and social media platforms, of course. And that happens while he was a sitting president. So that will tell you about how scared they are about free speech. They hate it. They hate free speech. They hate the Second Amendment, for example, because how can you control so heavily armed population, right? So I mean, the Constitution, it's the U.S. Constitution. It's between them and their plans, but they are acquiring a lot of power that it's supranational. So the U.S. Constitution, it's a national thing. So since their powers are supranational, let's say Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, their powers are supranational. They don't have to abide by the U.S. Constitution. They do whatever they want. So these are not the owners of the world. These are just operators of some businesses. So this will give you like a hint of the size of the power that it's behind the things that you're seeing happening here in the U.S. or all over the world, things that don't make any sense for citizens, for families, for the country, for the well-being of human beings, for liberty, but for democracy, for free speech, for your real and basic human rights. But it makes a lot of sense for them.
So it sounds like if the leaders of individual countries are making decisions that are not in the interest of those countries, they hurt the countries they lead, that maybe their greater interest is in something beyond their countries.
Yes, definitely. Definitely, yeah.
I don't see another rational explanation for that.
Yeah, it's the only rational explanation. And that's why I tweeted one time that the USA is too powerful to be destroyed from the outside. Actually, geographically, nobody can invade the U.S., the United States. Nobody. I mean, even if huge armies will collude and want to attack the U.S., it's impossible. I mean, you have to cross all the ocean, all the Pacific Ocean and all the Atlantic Ocean just to get to the shore. I mean, it's impossible, right? And the U.S. has military bases, so it's impossible. So the only way the U.S. can fail, and this is not my my analysis. This was made by presidents before, by U.S. presidents before. The demise of the U.S. has to come from within. Right? The enemies have to be inside, not really outside. No external enemy can cause so much damage as internal. It's an internal operation. You're watching internal operations here. You can see them in cities that were pristinely beautiful 30 years ago, are wastelands. right now. You would see people, I mean, I'm from El Salvador, a third world country in Central America. And myself, I can see cities here and say, I wouldn't live here. So that would be unthinkable 3 decades ago. Totally unthinkable. That a Salvadoran wouldn't want to live in a U.S. city, in a U.S. main city. I mean, Los Angeles, San
New York,
Francisco,
Chicago. Yeah.
No le
well,
joda, lo que dice es verdad.
Philadelphia, Baltimore.
En Los Ángeles hay algunos lugares, amigo, que es.
When you look how the cities
Una
are
locura.
eroding so fast,
En San Francisco, en unos
this has to
momentos
be by
no podía
design.
creer dónde estaba.
I mean,
Esto es una
who
verga
I mean,
total.
who would make so many stupid decisions? Like, okay, we're gonna give you money for drugs. Really, they're doing that. In some cities, they're giving people drugs. I mean, they're literally giving people drugs in some U.S. cities. Or they say, okay, we're gonna give you money if you don't work. Or we're gonna, they make all of these laws that make no sense. Or if they have a high crime, okay, I have a solution. Let's defund the police, right? They make this analysis here. And you see all these campaigns, defund the police. You will see these campaigns of, let's allow shoplifting up to this amount. They make these decisions.
Esto lo vieron, ¿no? La gente que van. Creo que si roban menos de $3.000 de un local, no cuenta como robo, cuenta como hurto. Entonces, tipo, se puede pagar con fianza y no van a. ¿Hasta cuánto es? ¿$900? $900, bueno. Cuenta como hurto, no cuenta como robo. Entonces pueden pagar fianza, ¿no? Pueden irse, no, saben que sí o sí no van a la cárcel. Entonces, no sé ustedes, pero yo uso bastante Twitter y la cantidad de videos que veo de gente choreando en locales, así tipo en farmacias, en lo que es allá Walgreens, y entran a sacar ropa y todo, y se levantan cosas y se van, boludo, se llenan los changuitos de cosas y se van así nomás. Pero zarpada la cantidad. Lo que serían saqueos de acá. Exactamente, tipo los saqueos de acá. Pero allá es constante. Porque hicieron este cambio de leyes.
Openly. I mean, it's not even secret. They make it. They make them openly. And we all know what would be the consequence of it. It's like, I always use this example. I know the U.S. Grows a lot of corn, but in El Salvador we do grow some corn and we also grow beans. So I always make the example that you can either plant corn or you can plant beans. It's fine, but you cannot plant corn and expect beans to show up, or you cannot plant beans and expect corn to show up. So if you plant a defunding of the police, allow for shoplifting, give drugs to drug addicts, give money for people to stop work, what would be the consequence of it? You will destroy the society, you will destroy the city, you will destroy the economy. And it's not only a logical thing to think, it's already happening.
¿Ven cuando digo que necesitamos gente joven, boludo, en política? Vos necesitas chabones que estén en su prime, amigo. En su prime, amigo. Este chabón se nota que está en su prime. Está hablando en un idioma que no es el de él y todo lo que está hablando está completamente en pija, con un conocimiento de la realidad altísimo. No está diciendo pelotudeces, en ningún momento lo ves que está diciendo pelotudeces. No vive en un mundo paralelo de vergadas que nadie entiende. No está hablando de conspiranoias locas que nadie dice, no, lo que está diciendo es una boludez bárbara. Cosas completamente lógicas. Y no solo eso, porque el chabón aparte podría hablar bien, pero ser un chorro total y un ladri que dice que va a hacer tal cosa no la hace. No solo eso, sino que va y hace lo que dice que tiene que hacer en su país y completamente en pija, ¿entendés? Eso es estar en chota, amigo. Eso es estar en chota. Mientras tanto, nosotros tenemos a Bullrich, amigo, que no puede ni siquiera hablar, no puede expresar una idea sin caerse a pedazos. No puede hablar 2 minutos sin caerse a pedazos. Este tipo está hace 42 minutos hablando en un idioma que no es el de él, de manera perfecta, y hablando genial de todo, boludo. Cuando lo estaba viendo el otro día, lo estaba viendo como a las 3, 4 de la mañana, Silvi estaba dormida, entonces lo estaba escuchando medio bajito, justo me vino con subtítulos, me quedó espectacular. Me la vi esta, después vi otra que lo tenía que poner un poco más fuerte porque estaba en español. Se me despertaba Silvi, no tenía ni idea qué carajo estaba viendo, pero me estaba informando de este chabón. No solo esto, también después vi entrevistas a la gente, porque también te puedes quedar con lo que dicen, ¿no? Que parece ser propaganda, vos decís, bueno, en realidad están como el orto, pero como la propaganda dice que están bien, están bien. Me puse a ver esta gente que hace vlogs, que va por ahí, que hace preguntas, y la gente lo ama, amigo. La gente lo ama. Están ahí en el casco histórico, te dicen, no, antes no podíamos venir al casco histórico. Que es como ir a Microcentro, a San Telmo, ahí a Plaza de Mayo. Entonces la gente no podía ir a Plaza de Mayo de ellos, no podían ir porque hasta cierto horario los cagaban a tiros y ya era más de las 6 de la tarde, les robaban y los mataban. A los pendejos del barrio los reclutaban las maras y los hacían recontra pija. Me vi un poco, digamos, de cosas, no, de la CNN o de entrevista de ellos, digamos, de gente random, como para entender y tener otro pop, ¿no? No tan oficial.
when they see more problems, they say, oh, so we need more of the same solutions that cause these problems in the first place. And they enact more of them. So they have more problems. And they enact more of the same solutions that cause those problems. They have more problems. So you would think these people, they can be so dumb. Of course they're not. They're smart. They're very smart people. So why are they doing these things? Because it's by design. It has to be by design. There's no other logical explanation.
Certainly defund the police and
Lo que
giving
dice es sacado, amigo. Lo que dice es sacado. O sea, los problemas que tienen son por toma de decisiones malas, no porque son estúpidos, sino porque es planificado, ¿entendés? Es que es verdad, no pueden ser estúpidos, amigo. Por algo lo están haciendo. ¿Por qué lo están haciendo? No puede ser que se caigan a pedo. No pueden ser todos estúpidos, boludo. Lo tienen que estar haciendo por algo, boludo.
drugs to drug addicts. I mean, you're trying to destroy things.
Yeah.
But there's no other explanation. But why?
Because, well, I don't know why.
El plan
I mean,
integral.
there's some things I know because they're there, like what we just spoke about. And
Yes.
It's not like, it's not private or secret information. Everybody
Mirá
that,
cómo no se la juega acá. Es increíble.
everybody that wants to know, he knows because it's there, it's public, it's, verifiable, people can look it up. So if you ask me why, that I don't know because it's not public, it's not verifiable. You cannot just look it up. So I don't have an answer. I can make my guesses, but it would be an uneducated guess at best. So it's very hard to know why.
Some of this stuff seems like it's the result of
Sólido, amigo. Sólido. No se la juega ni dando su opinión. ¿Entendés? Ni siquiera da su opinión el chabón, boludo, en esta respuesta. Es muy sólido, boludo. Es muy sólido. No dice, no, para mí es por esto. No, ni eso. No entiendo por qué lo hacen. O sea, tarados no son súper inteligentes, pero... Sí, obviamente. Lo tildarían de tibio, exactamente. Sí. En YouTube lo tildarían de tibio. Tendría un par de párrafos diciéndole que tibio, no dio su opinión de esto. Qué tibieza.
generational affluence. I'll guess that. I mean, people stay rich long enough, they get decadent. I think we see that in families, we see it in countries. Your country's gotten a lot more prosperous. I mean, your country it had this horrible civil war. Yeah. Huge percentage of your population left and came here in other countries. And now people are coming back. So your country's getting richer. Are you worried that these kinds of problems, this sort of social chaos, will come with the fact you're getting richer?
Well, no. I mean,
Ahora tira acá una que es buenaza. Que tiene sentido lo que plantea igual.
yeah, I understand the concept of hard times create
Los tiempos difíciles crean personas fuertes.
Yes.
strong people create good times.
Las personas fuertes crean tiempos fáciles.
Good times create weak people
Los tiempos fáciles crean personas débiles.
people create bad times.
Yes.
I understand the concept.
Y bueno, y ahí entra el loop, ¿no? Entra el loop que los tiempos fáciles. ¿Cómo es?
Create good times create weak people create bad times.
Yes.
I
Crean malos tiempos, los malos tiempos vuelven a crear gente difícil, la gente difícil que y es un loop. Digamos, no sé, seguramente tiene un nombre ese loop social que tiene mucho sentido.
understand the concept. I don't think it's that simple.
I guess to
No, estoy muy cansado, tengo mucho sueño, ¿no? Ya les dije, me estoy manteniendo despierto porque me quiero dormir tipo 12 por ahí. Pero estoy matado.
make the question a little more precise, there are NGOs, international agencies, governments that push these policies
Yes, they
on weaker countries.
Yes, they are pushing it very hard.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do you resist that?
By publicly resisting it. I mean,
Publicly resist.
Yes, I mean they will try to push their agendas in our country as well, like every other country. And since we are a small, poor, relatively poor country, of course they can, their money is worth more, so they can, they can hire people. They can. But there's some stronger forces. For example, common sense. Most people, most politicians will think of their people as,
Perdón, gracias Franco por los 20, Franio, gracias por los 68 y Gaby, gracias por los 28. Muchas gracias, loco.
having no common sense, or they have to shove their agendas down their throats just because they're in power. But that doesn't really work, does it? Because like you said at the beginning, there's almost no world leader that has the approval of his people.
No.
So it's not really working.
Todo se puede.
But if you understand that your citizens, they have common sense, they're smart, they want smart, common sense, real solutions for their real problems, and not some agenda that they don't care about, or actually they don't want that agenda within, close to their lives. So when you go out and say, okay, we're not going to push this agenda because it's not in the benefit of our people, we're going to do this and we're going to do that because that is in the benefit of people. Do you agree? Yes, we agree. Okay, then we're going to do that. Some people will say, oh, but that's, you're standing against the NGOs and the international organizations. That's so brave. But I don't think it's brave. I just think it's common sense and understanding your people have common sense, and they want their leaders to have common sense, so they will support you standing up against those things and actually doing the things that they want you to do, and not the things that the NGOs want you to do because they don't want them. So I really think it's not that hard. If a leader really, or a politician, or a person in any position of government really wants to do the best for his people, he can do it. And you can find, I will not do examples because I don't want to meddle in U.S.
Yes.
politics, but there are examples in U.S. politics of people that want to do, they seem like they genuinely want to do the best for their people, and they're very well
They seem.
supported
Que parece.
by their population, by their constituents.
So you didn't start life in politics.
No.
I don't think your family's political. You're from a business family. You were in business. You did a bunch of different things in business. And then you got elected mayor, I think, of your hometown?
Yeah, of not my hometown, but the town I live.
The town that you live in?
Yeah, I live in a small city in the outskirts of the capital.
Yeah.
It's called Nuevo Cuscatlán. I was mayor there first.
And then you're mayor of the capital city.
Then I ran for mayor of the capital. And then I was ousted by my party, which was one of the two main parties. We had a bipartisanship like in the States.
Yes.
We had a bipartisanship
Ahora explica cómo llega al poder.
over there. I was ousted. I was kicked out from my party. And
For criticizing its leaders.
yes, definitely. And we made a movement out of common folks. We got the signatures. We made a new party. We won the presidency in 2019 with 53% of the vote, which was considered for us, it was a wow because we just destroyed bipartisanship in the two-party system in El Salvador with a 53% of the vote. But now when you look back, actually 53% was only half the people. So yeah, we had enough support at the time. We thought it was a lot, but now we see it was only half. But we've been working ever since, and I know people seem to like what we're doing.
Well, yeah, you're the most popular elected leader in the world by
¿Se entiende que este tipo asumió en el 2019? Sin mayoría en el Senado hasta el 2021.
far. You've had credible approval surveys putting you over 90%, which I really
Todavía no terminó su primer mandato.
only exists when you hold guns to people's heads. So and you're not. So it's an amazing thing. What's surprised you about politics now that you're running a country? What were you shocked to learn?
The scale of corruption.
Yeah.
I would, when I was a kid, I would.
Amigo, es presidente. Es buenísimo, amigo. Es buenísimo, boludo. Esto es lo que se necesita, amigo.
Watch politics in my country, of course, in other countries, in the U.S., in the world, and I always thought that Latin America, everybody knows Latin American countries are filled with corruption. It's like very corrupt
Yes.
political system. It has, and not only Latin America. We saw the president of Afghanistan fleeing his country with a plane with like $100 million in cash or something like that.
They had trouble getting off the tarmac.
Yeah, because he was carrying gold. He was carrying gold and diamonds.
Yeah.
So this politics in the third world, they're very corrupt. Everybody knows that. Latin America, Africa, some Asian countries, they're very, very corrupt. But I thought that the first world or the developed world, they didn't have corruption within their political system just because you have checks and balances.
Yes.
You will have investigative agencies that will go after. I mean, if a president flies in his plane with $100 million in cash, you won't see that in the States. I mean, no U.S. president has ever flown in a plane with $100 million in cash. I would bet. I mean, I don't know, but I would bet no U.S. president has.
I would bet that too.
Yeah. So because it's so I thought I
No
said
se la juega con ninguna cola,
once
aparte,
this
Es que
third
es muy
world.
justo para hablar, boludo. Dice, yo apostaría que no pasó eso. Pero no dice no pasó, ¿entendés? Es como muy justo para todo. Hasta con un ejemplo random lo explica bien, boludo. Para no jugársela ni siquiera con un ejemplo random pedorrísimo, ¿entendés?
Countries achieve that level of purity in their. That's what I thought when I was a kid, like very innocent and naive person. I thought once our countries achieve that level of purity in their political systems, then these countries will be developed as well. But
Esto
what I
dice
really
cuando él
found
era
out
chico,
is
estaba
that
equivocadísimo. Estados
the
Unidos
more
muy
money a
contra,
country
boludo.
has, the more corrupt it is. Although, of course, its corruption is more sophisticated. They will not,
Claro.
carry money in a plane. They would do
Right.
other things, book deals,
Speeches.
speeches,
Art.
yes, they will. Yeah, they will sell paintings, or so it's more sophisticated, but it's higher. It's hundreds of millions of dollars in these things. Probably billions, of course, billions of dollars in these things.
Se pone serio, ¿eh? Se pone
So-
serio acá.
You would see that weapon deals, pharmaceutical deals. I mean, you would think this billion, not $1 billion, but this $1 billion contracts, right, for weapons, for pharmaceuticals, for mainstream media, for you name it, right, for everything, for nation building, for a lot of things. Even mercenaries. I mean, this huge industries. They have two sides. There's the people in the private sector, and there's people in the in government. So the people in government must be getting their cut, and their cut should be huge. And we just mentioned a couple. we can see, but of course there's the other that we can't see. And so once you learn that actually corruption is everywhere, it's not only in the third world countries or not only in, puppet presidents, but actually
No,
also in
claro,
the
por eso estaba diciendo que, tipo, por ejemplo, de escuchar a Bullrich no podés aprender absolutamente nada de nada, amigo. Nada. No dejan a una persona. No te deja nada, amigo. No, de lo que habla no entiende nada. Vi un clip, igual quería verla para cagarme de risa, la verdad. Porque era solo para reírme. Pero hoy estaba medio hinchado los huevos, la verdad, y no tenía ganas de poner mis últimas 2 horas de vigilia en escuchar a la vieja de mierda esta. Me iba a cagar de risa cuando dijo hay que filmarlos a. Hay que filmar, vi el clip ese, de 1 minuto y pico que se derrumba a pedazos diciendo, y bueno, vamos a filmar entre los abogados, cuando está el abogado con el imputado, le filmamos qué es lo que dice y a partir de ahí podemos... Pero es inconstitucional, señora. Trabaja en política hace 34 millones de años y no conoce la Constitución, ¿entendés? A ese punto, esos son los políticos que tenemos, esa es la mierda que tenemos. No te pido que me vendas humo, bien, que me hable bien, cosas, pero no sabes hablar, bueno, pero aunque sea, tenés que saber. Es un asco, amigo, es una vergüenza que esté en gestión esa gente haciendo cosas, boludo. O sea, son inútiles totales.
the puppeteers, and more so in the puppeteers. Of course, the puppet will get a smaller cut. That's why he takes the bags with the money, because it's his cut, right?
Yeah.
So he gets the smaller cut, then the other guy gets a bigger cut, and the bigger guy gets a bigger cut, then the biggest guy gets the biggest cut, right? So once you understand that most of the political system is corrupt, then you understand
Se pone serio.
how you should behave in front of that corrupt system, knowing that, of course, you're not corrupt and you want to fight it, but you don't have the strength to fight it. But at least you can keep your people safe from it, and you can do the best you can from your work and try to stay safe. I think that's enough in
Can you stay? I mean, I wonder about that. I mean, I agree with everything you just said, and I grew up thinking that problems like corruption or political assassination, these were all features of Mexico.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think that anymore. But the fact remains, you are out of step, not on the small things, on the big things, like monetary policy, what our economy should look like, and what democracy is. You're out of step with, some of the biggest players in the West. So does that make you concerned at all?
Yes, it does. But, I think part of it staying safe. I mean, we never know. God knows. I mean, what will happen. But part of it staying safe, it's come out in public and say the things.
Yes.
It's harder. I mean, they have done it before with a lot more important people, so they can do it, of course. But they have many enemies, not one. They have a lot of people calling these things out. They have been censoring all of these people because it's easier to censor than just go and eliminate every person saying bad things about them. It's too hard. They cannot. So a part of staying safe, I think, is going public, being transparent, and being say the things that and you want to say, and that you think that they must be said. And I mean, they haven't done anything to you, and that's because you're saying the things you want to say, and it would be too expensive for them. It's cheaper for them to smear you, to say bad things about you, to have people think that you're a bad person, which you're not, but it's easier for them to do those things. Go and straight and eliminate you, that would be, too messy. And it will probably be against their own plans. So I really think one way to stay safe is being true to yourself and saying the things out loud, so people can, listen to them, make their own decisions about it, and know what you stand for. So it would be a little more expensive for them to eliminate all opposition in front.
You have to kill a lot of people.
Exactly.
Last obvious question, but since we do have so many Salvadorans living in this country, how many Salvadorans live in the U.S., do you think?
2.5 million.
2.5 million. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Amigo.
And they, at least according to the polls, agree with you.
Cuarto,
Yes.
o sea,
Yeah.
un cuarto de los salvadoreños viven en Estados Unidos. Siete en El Salvador y 2,5 en Estados Unidos.
That's really interesting. Like, how did we miss that? How do we miss that all these, at least speaking for myself, I agree with you. So I didn't realize that we had millions of Salvadorans here, legally and illegally, who agree with you and me. Like, when
Yes.
did that happen?
Well, I think, there are things that probably some Salvadorans won't agree with you or me,
Yeah.
but there's fundamental human values that are universal, and there's a reason why they are universal. If you're a believer, you would say God. I would say God myself. If you're not a believer, you would say nature, the universe, the order of things. So there are things that are universal. And these concepts that are logical, universal, they have been like that for all of civilization. There's a huge, the system or the ones in power, they want to change that. They want to change these universal concepts that are very strong within everybody. So even though, a Catholic might think different than an evangelical Christian, for example, they will have some of the same principles within themselves. You pay your debts, you take care of your neighbor, you care for your family, you protect your family, you raise your kids. There's some fundamental values that are very important. You protect your wealth, your saving is good. We can go on for hours.
Yeah.
There's very fundamental values, like stealing is bad, killing is bad, raping a child is bad, but there's even movements about that. So with those fundamental values that are so dear to most of the people in the world being under attack by the elites, a lot of people are saying, hey, this guy, he's in a very good position, but he's not a member of the elites. Actually, the elites hate him, your case, right? And he's saying the truth. He's saying the things I believe are true. So I agree with him. So sometimes you would find support or people that agree with you in places you don't expect it, just because we're all human beings and we all have the same values.
Amen. Mr. President, thank you for spending all this time with us.
Thank you, Tucker.
And what a way to end. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. No le dijo Yahweh Con. Y no le dijo Yahweh Con, hermano. Bueno, le voy a seguir los pasos a este tipo.